Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS in.form. I'm your host, Bill Potter. Have you ever noticed a packaging date on the foods that you're using and wondered if they're still good or wondered what you should do with those? Let's find out in this edition of WJTS in.form as Jan Dougan, the Health and Human Services Educator with Purdue Extension, joins us in the studio.
Thanks, Bill. We're glad to be here again, and hopefully we can educate some of the consumers watching about packaging dates on their food products.
Well, the other day I was needing some spices and I pulled a spice out that is not one that I use very often. I realized that the date was like 2015 when I looked at it. Is that still good?
So, is that still good? When we look at spices or herbs and they do have a use by date on them, and sometimes it's very hard to read because sometimes it's very tiny or it's not printed very boldly on the package. But is it good to use after that date? If it's a food safety issue, I can say yes, it's okay to use. A quality issue, maybe not the best choice. So if you open up a spice or an herb and it's past that use by date, smell it. See if that smell is vibrant and robust. If it is not, you know you're not going to get the flavor that you want in the food that you're preparing. And I really feel like we spend a lot of time and energy in our kitchens preparing foods to eat. And the more tasty the foods are, the more attractive the foods are, the more likely we are to eat those foods and enjoy them and want to cook again. So you could, if it's like cinnamon that you open and you smell it and you're like, wow, it doesn't really smell very strong, you could add a little extra to your recipe to try to get that flavor. But really, it's probably not going to be quite as tasty as what you would like it to be.
But there are some foods that you obviously, the date will make a difference. Milk is one of those. That's probably the one date that most people are aware of is a date on milk. But that one's pretty obvious. If it's not good, you can tell that.
Yes, and how would you be able to tell that your milk was not good?
I would smell it,
Yes.
would be the first thing. Then I would taste it. Because sometimes milk can have a different taste as it's getting older.
Right.
But it's not bad.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it could have it would be a sour,
Yes.
a sour smell, a sour taste. And yeah,
And that would be a food safety issue because
that
that's
could be
okay.
a food safety issue depending upon if it's a very young person or an elderly person, because you know the very young and the older individuals, their immune systems and their systems can be compromised more easily. So we want to be really careful about use dates when we're talking about those populations.
Okay.
Like so infant formula. You would never want to use infant formula that beyond the date that it states on there. So, you know, we just want to be aware of that.
And everything has to have a date? Everything has a date nowadays?
Most products, yes, have some kind of date. And I think as I reviewed products in my home, I'm finding that there's more consistency than there used to be. At one time, there used to be a lot of closed dating. So you would pick up a product, for example, this product of tomatoes. And if you read this, can you tell what that is, Bill?
That's a code number.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's just a number, no date.
That's
Okay.
right. And that says something to the company, but it doesn't say anything to the consumer. So if I had this in my pantry and I wondered whether or not this was still a good product to use, one of the things I could do is look for signs of spoilage. So is it a bulging can? When I open it, does liquid spurt out of it? Is there an off odor or an off smell? If not, then there may be it may be okay to use, okay? I could also make sure that I heat it and heat it to a high temperature to kill any microorganisms that might be in there. But what I could do also is there is the company on the can that this product is from. If the phone number is not there, I could go to the internet, I could put in that company name. There's an 800 number that will probably pop up or a toll-free number. I could call the company, I could give them this code, and they would tell me when this product was packed, where it was packed, and what date it needed to be used by. But I am noticing that, and this used to be true on a lot of baking products that we had, on the shelf, but I'm noticing now that a lot more of those codes are changing to open code dating so that the consumer can read it. So it's either a sell-by date, a best by date, or a use by date that we'll find on products.
And what's the difference?
Okay, what's the difference? Sell by date means that the store needs to sell the product by then. It's the printed date on the packaging. It doesn't mean that the consumer can't still eat the product. It means that it's a recommendation for the store to sell by that date. The best by date means that the product is going to be best if we use it by that date. So again, the seasonings that we talked about, the quality is going to be better. The flavor is going to be better. It probably is not a food safety issue. Okay? And then the use by date. The use by date is that the product really needs to be used by that date. It's at its peak quality, and there could be a food safety issue if we don't use it by that date.
Okay, and that's the use by date.
Use by date. Right.
Are the dates easy to find?
Well, let's see. Pick up that egg carton and see if you can find a date.
Sell by March 8th.
Sell by March 8th. So
Okay,
what does that mean to you as a consumer?
So the grocery store wants to sell this by the 8th of
Right.
March. And I still can use it after that if it's still good.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But it doesn't
And
mean it's bad
That's
after
correct.
that date.
That's
Yes.
correct. So you really want to check when you purchase products like that. You really want to check the code date on the products in the retail outlet that you're purchasing products.
Right.
What about the oatmeal?
Oatmeal, it's going to be on the plastic, maybe not. It's on the bottom. Best before. Okay, so this is, the flavor will be best by this date that's on here. I can
Correct.
still keep it and use it afterwards.
Correct.
So I'd imagine oatmeal can last a long time, rolled
Yeah.
oats, but it's not going to have that flavor or that boldness that you want.
Right, right. And so, you know, if I had a product like that and it was beyond that date, I might want to use it in my oatmeal. Not in my oatmeal, but in my meatloaf.
Okay.
To, you know, sometimes you add either breadcrumbs or oats or something to your meatloaf to help form it. That might be a good use for that because the dominant flavor in the meatloaf is the meatloaf, right?
Right,
The meat,
right.
not the...
That's more the filler.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So I have another product here.
Now this one has a use by date. So this I should not eat after that date because it most likely is a food safety issue.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yes. So
And this has quinoa in it, so that's healthy for you too, and flax.
yes, but the concern probably there is the flax because that could be a health food safety issue. So,
Okay.
you know, we just want people to be aware that there are different dates, there are different codes. We want you to read them when you shop for your food products. Consumer beware. Buy what's within the reasonable time frame that you can use it. When you take food home, products home, if you have several on your pantry shelf, we want you to use the first in, first out technique. So rotate your products
right.
to, actually it's going to save you money because you're not going to be throwing things away. I get calls often in the extension office from individuals who are cleaning out their pantries or they're cleaning out their mother's pantry and they're trying to figure out if foods are safe to use or not safe to use. So those dates, those use by dates, those best by dates, those sell by dates, those are really good guides for individuals. And then you also have to be aware of signs of food spoilage, and we can share that kind of information. So if anyone's working on a project like that and has that responsibility, if you give us a call at the Purdue Extension Office at 812-482-1782, we can provide some more information about food safety and about products in your pantry, whether they're safe to use or not.
I guess it would be a good idea to do an inventory check occasionally.
It would be.
And I should have done that with my spices.
Well, and spices are one thing that I try to have an annual time that I do that. So right before the holiday season is usually when I go through my spices to make sure that I'm prepared for holiday baking and holiday cooking, and those spices that I normally use, I can replenish if I need to, because I've noticed that there seems to be a cycle, and at that time of the year, often retail outlets will have a reduced cost on seasonings and spices, so I can get replenished for a little less money.
Right. All right. Well, Jan, thank you very much. Anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I think it's great. And again, we're here to help. If people have questions or concerns, give us a call.
Check the dates when you're in the store and check the dates at home. Thank you very much. Jan Dougan, who is the Health and Human Services Educator with Purdue Extension in DuBois County, has been our guest. We thank you for watching. We are local people watching local people, WJTS TV.